Hi, I'm Andy, and today on the running channel we're going to take a quick first look at Garmin's brand new Fenix 7 watch. The Fenix 6 was released back in 2019 with solar models added to the range in 2020, but now at the start of 2022 we've got our hands on Garmin's flagship Fenix 7 watch, an outdoor watch loved by a lot of runners as well as outdoor enthusiasts because of its rugged look, extra battery life and all of the high-end features. And having waited 2.5 years for Garmin to update their model range to the 7, we've been given 22 different SKUs, which are subtly different versions, or actually 26 if you're to include the 4 versions of the brand new Epics, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. Today I'm going to focus mainly on what's different between the Fenix 6 and the Fenix 7. There's one feature in particular which I'm really excited about. And we're planning on doing more first looks at various different bits of tech throughout the rest of this year. So if there's any particular brands or models coming up or that are already out there that you'd like us to take a look at, please let us know in the comments below. Before we dive in, it's worth saying that whilst Garmin are a partner on some of the other videos that we make, we're not paid by the brands to say nice things about the models when we review them, and today is just an honest look at what I think about this brand new watch. So when a new watch is released, it's actually quite overwhelming, both in terms of the features, both new and the ones that were existing in the range already, and the different model options that are available. So I've got my notes here, and I've also been taking the watch for a spin for the last week or so to get a feel for it. And I'm going to talk you through some of the key features, starting with the different range of models that are available to suit various different options. The range is so extensive because it offers you different options to cater for different things, starting with size. For example, there's a 7S, which is the smallest version, the 7, which I've got here, and then the 7X, which is the largest version and probably only really suitable for people with slightly larger wrists than me. Then you can choose an option as to whether you have the solar version or not, which adds a little bit of extra battery life because it's able to charge through a feature in the screen which harvests sunlight's energy. You can also choose the glass type, and this is the first time that Garmin have had both solar power and sapphire glass available on the same watch. You can also choose whether you have the steel version or, in the more premium models, the titanium version, which is slightly lighter and perhaps brings it in line more with, from my understanding, what the Coros Vertex 2 has. And then you can choose between 2 different GPS technologies, the more traditional one or a newer one which uses multi-band technology to allow you to get better signal and recording in difficult to track areas like wooded areas or built up areas in cities. Now the Fenix watches have always been some of Garmin's flagship outdoor watches, and you pay a premium for that because of the high-end features that they have. And this is no exception here, and because of the extensive nature of the range, there's also quite a big range of prices, starting at $599.99 in the UK, so that's in pounds, right the way up to $859.99, and actually even north of that if you buy one of the models that's available in jewelers and has different straps and so on. So in terms of size and weight, you want to consider your wrist size, but also the battery life that you want to achieve when choosing the right model. Now the Fenix 7S, I need to refer to my notes here, it's quite complicated. The Fenix 7S is 30mm across, and the lightest version weighs in at 58 grams. The 7 that I've got is 33mm across and weighs between 73 and 79 grams, depending on the version that you've got. Whilst the biggest version, the 7X, is 35.5mm across and weighs in between 89 and 96 grams, so that's not a light watch. The 7's got the same 5-button layout that you'd be familiar with from the 6 and other Garmin watches as well, but there are some subtle differences to the aesthetic. First of all, they've moved the screws, which were on the bezel itself before, and they've been moved onto the kind of shoulders. Then the main start button, which is on the side here, actually has a little bit more protection and some styling around it, allegedly to make it less easy to mistakenly press during a workout and therefore stop or start your activity by mistake. There's also the solar technology, which has been improved from previous models. You've got the perimeter ring around the outside of the face, which harvests 100% of sunlight's energy. And then you've got the watch face itself, which for the first time can capture some of the sun's energy as well, giving you an overall improvement across all of the range to improve the battery life. There's also probably the key biggest difference here, which is the touchscreen. Introducing the touchscreen in quite a light touch way actually, because you can turn it on and off. You don't always have to have it working, and I've got it set to automatically turn off when I'm doing an activity because I don't want to swipe through my screens by mistake. Another thing where the touchscreen really comes into its own is in the navigation features, by being able to drag and move the map around to see what you might have coming up, something that was a little bit more clunky to do using the buttons on the previous models. The biggest immediate difference is the screen. It's nicer to look at, it seems a much higher quality, and it's a touchscreen, which is a big difference. I never necessarily thought that the Fenix 6 needed a touchscreen, but the addition here has been well thought out. If you've got data points on your home screen, then it's a nice touch to be able to physically touch them to take you to the glance, the data glance, which is what Garmin calls it, which takes you into more detail about your heart rate or your elevation or your different stats that you might have on the watch. If we're talking about the screen, it's also worth mentioning the Epics, which is the top-end version of the Fenix 7, essentially. Now that has an AMOLED screen, which is just like what you'd have on your phone, so a total step up in terms of screen quality, but for that there is a price that you pay and also a sacrifice in battery life. Now the smaller models, the 7S and the 7 that I've got, have an option where you can double tap on the light button to light up the screen and use that as a kind of flashlight if you're scrambling around in the dark. But on the 7X, the bigger model, there's actually a proper LED torch or flashlight built into the outside of the watch. Now you can use that to sync with your cadence when you're running, and it can flash white and red, or it can strobe as you're running as well. Essentially an extra safety feature to help you be seen, or if you're trying to find something when you're living an outdoor lifestyle, camping for example. If battery life is the be all and end all, then this watch is a great option, as is the Enduro, which is also from Garmin, which is a big focus on lasting on long endurance ultra activities. But we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Coros and their range of watches, which really specialise in long battery life, right away from the Pace 2 as a very specialist running watch, up to the Vertix 2 as their outdoor watch, which is the competitor for this. I mentioned it earlier, but being able to use what is quite now an advanced technology in terms of the multi-band GNSS, which is the GPS tracking system, allows the watch to use multiple satellite systems simultaneously to avoid the interference that you get where the signal is bouncing off or being reflected by buildings and trees. I haven't had a chance to test that fully, but I think there'll be a few marathon runners who'll be interested to see whether that'll work in the kind of dead spot in the London Marathon where everyone's GPS always goes haywire. Race Predictor uses all of the data that the watch knows about you and through Garmin Connect as well to estimate your best time if you were to take on certain different distances. Previously that was just 4 times, one for each different distance, but now it tracks your predicted time over time to show how it's improving and how the different types of training that you do are affecting times in different distances. You'd expect that more specialist training might affect the event that you're training for the most, but you'll be able to see how that impacts it directly on the watch. There's also a new feature called Up Ahead, which is a single screen that allows you to see at a glance key features that are relevant to you that are coming up. Things like when the next climb is, when you might need to take on some water, or things like your next waypoint. With a running channel, we're focused on running, but we'd always recommend that you're doing some cross-training too. And the new additions to this watch also include some new cross-training features and some new HIIT workouts for you to follow along with. Now, one of the biggest new features, and the thing that I'm most excited about because I can see real-world applications for this that can help with people's training, with my racing, that's called stamina. And stamina, by definition, is the ability to sustain performance over a period of time. So this feature is aimed at helping you avoid bonking or hitting the wall, so going too hard too early and not being able to finish at the pace that you started, but also to allow you to maximize your effort. So to make sure that you don't leave any of your run kind of out there on the road and haven't maxed out your effort. So full disclaimer, I haven't been able to try this feature out fully. I've had a quick demonstration. I've also taken it out for a run, but not used it to its fullest extent, and I can't comment on how accurate it is. But in theory, this is really exciting, and it actually works in a similar way, if anyone's familiar with it, to the KERS, the energy recovery system on F1, in terms of a gauge it gives you to let you know how close you're working to your potential. The idea here is that it allows you to manage your effort in real time. So on a screen, I've got mine set up to show me stamina on a single data screen on my run activity. So I scroll to it during my activity and then I can see it laid out. There's a progress bar there which shows you your potential. It also gives you a potential as a percentage. So if you're well rested, ultimately the stamina system, that the algorithm takes into account your sleep, your previous performance levels, the training that you've done recently, and your other physiological inputs on the watch to give you a potential. So if you're well rested, it should be 100%. When you're running, your actual live stamina and your potential deplete based on the effort that you're running at in terms of the pace. The watch will also show you a distance or a time that it thinks, based on all of those metrics before, you'll be able to sustain your existing pace for. If you overcook it too early, then your actual live stamina figure will deplete or go lower much more quickly than your potential figure, which shows you how much energy you could have left if you back off a little bit and give yourself a chance to recover. Effectively, you should be able to recover back up towards that potential figure by easing off. For example, if you've got to exactly halfway in a marathon, but your watch says you've only got 11 miles of effort left, then it's probably time to try and recoup some of that energy and make sure you're going to get to the finish line and still be able to run strong. The data screen itself takes a little bit of getting used to, but essentially the black bar in the middle shows you if you've got a difference between your actual stamina and the potential. Orange means that your energy levels, your stamina is depleting, and green means that you're recharging by recovering slightly back up towards that potential level. Those are the key differences between the new 7 range and the previous 6 models, but now I'm just going to give you a quick summary of my opinions and some of the other key features. Now there's a long list, but you do still get all of the top end features of the Fenix series, like navigation, something that I use quite a lot, particularly in new locations, using Garmin's Connect software to plot me a new route if I've got no idea where I'm going. Sleep tracking, Pace Pro, Climb Pro, music including Spotify, another feature that I use a lot, and other apps, along with things like body battery and other physiological measures. It's not a radical cosmetic overhaul. In fact, it looks very similar to the Fenix 6. So if you're a fan of the Fenix 6, then you'll like how this looks. And it's a watch that's comfortable being worn at work, casually, but also obviously on a run because we are the running channel. Working my way down my list, and next up is the touchscreen. It's really nice, it's well executed, it's not clunky or annoying, and that hasn't always been the case with Garmin's forays into touchscreens in their previous watches. So in this case, I really like it and it's really effective. Now the battery life stats are really impressive. There's more battery life here, particularly with the solar inclusion, than I'm ever likely to use between charges. But if battery life is the be all and end all, then there are other models to consider, like the Enduro that we mentioned, and brands like Coros, where across their whole range really, they've made battery life one of their key features. Now, stamina does stand out for me. You could tell in the video I was excited about this feature. It stands out for me as a great addition and one that's only going to be available in this range of watches to start with. Now, if you love data and you feel like you like features like Pace Pro, suggested workouts and body battery, then it could be really useful for you. But like anything, it's obviously only going to be as accurate as the data that the watch can use. So you need to be using the watch enough, and you probably also need to be selective about when you use it. I don't know how motivating it would be to pitch up to the start line of a key race or marathon, for example, and see that your potential to start with before you even hit the start line is less than 100%. Now the Fenix series have never been pure running watches and don't claim to be, but lots of runners do love them, me included, because of just how comprehensive they are. The high-end features mean that there's everything you could possibly wish for as a runner, but you pay a premium for that. And so if you only want a specific running watch that you'll only wear for running, you can definitely pick up lighter, cheaper Garmin models or from other brands like Coros, Polar and Suntone. Now, if you're talking about outdoor watches in particular, then you'll be comparing this against Polar's Grit X Pro, which comes in at a cheaper price point. Also against the Vertix 2 from Coros, which matches a lot of these features here, perhaps not in terms of stamina and some of the newer additions, but does have titanium body, really long battery life, and the addition of music. Although from having used both systems, I do think that the Garmin system for music is slightly easier to use. And then you've also got the Suntone 9, but from my experience of testing that briefly, it doesn't really come close to either the Coros or the Garmin. If you've got a Fenix 6 already, then you're going to have to compare the features carefully and see whether it's worth the upgrade and that outlay of cash. But if you haven't got a running watch at all, or you're looking to invest in a new one, then the Fenix 7 really is a great option. With really high-end features, very high-end build quality, it does feel incredibly tough and durable, but you're paying a premium for that compared to running specialist watches that don't try and do everything that the Fenix 7 does. So weigh those up and maybe think about the Forerunner range, or perhaps watches like Coros Pace 2, if you're thinking about investing in a specialist running watch. I really hope that was useful for you, a whirlwind tour through the brand new features of the Garmin Fenix 7 and how it compared to the previous models. But more importantly, we'd like to know what you're excited about launching this year, whether that's technology, brands, different models. Let us know what you'd like to see us get our hands on and we'll try to make that happen. I'll see you next time on the Running Channel.